gentlemen, welcome back to BSing Sports. We got a special guest on today with us. Again, actually, Frankie from at the Nitty Gritty in Philadelphia, and also now newly at Talking 215 with our buddy Jake, who we had on also. He's going to talk a little bit of hockey with us, starting with the Stanley Cup, moving into some Flyers conversations, and we'll go from there, see how it goes. So, Frankie, it's great to have you on, buddy.
The boys are buzzing. It's good to be back. I would go back to that first segment that we did, and when I realized that the takes that you guys were able to give, and not to mention how argumentative Ryan is. I mean, he's just, he's a python out there. It's good to be back, boys. Good to be back.
Glad to have you. Also, we do have a question from a very, very loyal viewer. So we'll get into that a little bit later as we touch into hockey and whatnot.
Fantastic.
All right, so Stanley Cup Finals. For those of you who don't know, the Lightning knocked off the Montreal Canadiens 4-1. I mean, there was a blip on the radar there in Game 4, but I don't think that was a blip. I think that was probably intentional. We could discuss that a little bit. But anyway, Frankie, give us some feedback on how you feel the Cup went versus what you saw the Lightning did well, where the Canadiens kind of fell back. And then Ryan, you can chime in next.
Tampa Bay Lightning versus Montreal Canadiens. It's one of those series where and it played out that way. It was going to go one-sided. Montreal Canadiens reminded me of that, so to speak, the 2010 Philadelphia Flyers team. They got in hot. They played really hot. And you know how it is with NHL playoffs. There's nothing like it. A hot team going in can go pretty far. I really want to see Carey Price get one. But with that being said, Tampa Bay Lightning are just built for the playoffs. I spoke with Chris Mayer. He's a Flyers nitty-gritty writer as well. He's a couple other things. He said it on the pod. This team is built for the playoffs. They do not – I don't know much of a flaw they have. Maybe their wives aren't that pretty. I don't know. But their game and the NHL, the way they play, is absolutely phenomenal. This team is built to win championships.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Top to bottom, all 12 forwards, all 6 defensemen, and their Conn Smythe and Vezina winning trophy, Andrei Vasilevsky, that is a rock. They just got everything that you would ever want from a team. And that was actually a really good point you made about Montreal, because they were absolutely on paper the worst team in the playoffs, no doubt, just like pretty much the Flyers were in 2010 when they walked in as a 7th seed in the East. So that was a really good comparison, but this Montreal team is young. This Montreal team is ready to compete, and they have the right pieces in the right places. And they were missing Brendan Gallagher for most of the season too. So they definitely will be up and coming, especially if they continue to have an all-Canadian division, because that was by far the weakest division in hockey, despite, them having a representative in the Cup final.
So, Ryan, so I mentioned a blip on the radar when I brought the Stanley Cups up. The blip on the radar being Game 4, as I previously mentioned. You had told me that Montreal had said that they were not going to let the family members of the Tampa Bay Lightning come into Canada to celebrate in case the Lightning had won. So again, I already mentioned, I think that it wasn't really a blip on the radar. Give me your feedback on whether you think that the Lightning actually let the Canadiens win Game 4 or not.
No, I don't. The more I sit on it, I don't really think so. It was first off, it wasn't like Montreal went out there and wiped the ice with them. They won 1-0 in overtime. So it was a hard-fought competitive game. I feel like if Tampa was really out there to lose that game, they would have made it a little bit more obvious than losing 1-0 in 60-plus minutes. So I don't really think that was the case. I just think Montreal happened to catch Tampa on an off night, so to speak. And that's part of the youth. Montreal was playing well those whole playoffs. So I wasn't expecting a sweep beforehand. I would have said Lightning in 6, but Lightning in 5 sounds about right. I just think everything played out the way it should have. Just more to them for winning at home.
Frankie?
I love they let them win. I'm not saying that we hear it. We hear guys that cover sports media. We hear, they want to win it on home ice. They want to win the championship. If they could win it in one game, they would win it in one game. I never really believed that was a sort of a take. I mean, and if it is, it's probably some guy that probably thinks Paul Giroux should be traded, which we don't have to get into.
We will.
We always do our Paul Giroux segment. But with that being said, I'm going to jump back with Ryan about Montreal. This team is young. I mean, they have a player that has been being brought up a lot more in Philadelphia and Caulfield, but because of the Flyers could have had him. The Flyers could have had him. This kid's good. This kid is really good. And I'll state it just for the record, on the record, the Flyers did not need a forward. We had gotten Cam York. That's all I'm going to say. Just watch that kid play. This team's young. They're going to get better. I'm a little questionable on how much longer Carey Price will be around. I mean, he's coming closer and closer to the end. I really wanted to see him win it. This team's young. I think that they're only going to get better and better. It's going to be like one of those New York Islanders teams with the right coaching, the right pieces. You see the jump that the New York Islanders took. They are only getting better and better. This is going to be probably similar to the Montreal team as well.
Yeah, no, and to touch on that, actually, it was kind of ironic when Montreal ended up playing Vegas in the semifinal for the Cup, because there was a big trade that went down a couple of years ago between those two teams, sending longtime Canadian Max Pacioretty to Vegas in exchange for two of those young pieces, one of which being Nick Suzuki, and Thomas Tatar. And both of those guys really shined. Like, both of those guys played really well. And to say that either team won the trade, I still think it's a little early, but there's definitely more youth to be had and more years to be had on the Montreal side of that trade. So it's looking really good for Montreal. That was looking like a trade that both teams needed. It's kind of like comparable to the Stafford Goff deal in the NFL, but we'll touch on that one day, where Vegas was in a very win now mode and Montreal was rebuilding. So they wanted the young pieces. It worked out for both sides, but they really showed out. They really showed their former team, like, hey, you made a mistake. And that's what you got to do when you're playing against them.
The point you just made was absolutely, and once again, Brian, the hot take. He always throws this one point that I use every single time going in the future. It worked out for both teams. If you're not mentioning the Flyers, I'm going to bring it in. The Flyers needed a good defenseman, a young defenseman. That's what they needed. That's what they got. That's why they drafted who they drafted. Carolina, not Carolina. Montreal Canadiens needed who they needed. They needed the young gun, Cole and Caulfield. It worked out for both teams. So get what you get. The takes on people all of a sudden talking about players that no longer are here that are having success is it's erroneous. Let it go. They're not here. We never had them. And we can dive into that later on. We'll save that for like a later segment. But it's just, it worked out for both teams. We have a stud. They have a stud. Let's just see how these kids grow.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And to steal
Damn right
Bill's,
you do, right? Damn right you do.
To steal Bill's famous line, I agree with you 100%. I'm hitting that on your tombstone, man. It's going to happen.
I feel like it's a new catchphrase here on BSing Sports. One of us is going to say it every single episode. Usually it's me, but Ryan has done it the last 3 weeks in a row.
I'll write on my parents' gravestone in Sharpie, but man, I'm making sure that gets engraved on yours.
No, man, that's great. Yeah, we have a writer at the old Flyers Nitty Gritty, no mentions, of course, that loves to do the old agreements with me on the old back and forth. I agree. I'm like, come on, have a take. Give me a battle here.
All right. Well, speaking of trying to have some battles, moving on from the Stanley Cup Finals, because now we're homers a little bit. The Flyers are.
Man, that talk lasted longer than the Cup Final did.
It really did. So let's talk Philadelphia Flyers. I want to briefly see where the two of you think that the Flyers are at right now, whether you think that they should be in a reset or maybe a retool mode. Rebuild or retool mode. My take on it is that I think they should be in a retool mode. They still have some good young players and some young talent, and they can build around the talent that's there, in addition to the fact that Claude Giroux is still one of the top 10 forwards in the league, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people out there that think Giroux should be traded. I am not one of them. I am adamantly against it. So I think they're in a retool mode. Go out, get maybe another good defenseman, somebody to really play well in front of Carter Hart, help Carter Hart get his experience and his confidence up. And that's where I think they're at. So, Ryan, what do you think?
First off, people keep saying we should trade Claude Giroux. I don't know how many times the words "no movement clause" have to be used with these people, but Claude Giroux literally couldn't go anywhere.
You can restructure it.
No, you can't.
Claude Giroux doesn't even want to leave Philadelphia. If he wanted to leave Philadelphia, he would have waived his no movement clause years ago, but he wants to be here, obviously more than the fans want him to be here. But I think the Flyers are this close. If you take a look at the comparison between the 2019 roster that was one game away from going to the Eastern Conference Finals versus this team, The only difference is Matt Niskanen, really, and how he impacted everybody else around him. That leadership, that veteran, that solid play. He wasn't outstanding on the stat sheet, but he didn't have to be. He elevated everybody else's game, specifically Ivan Provorov. He helped Travis Sanheim. He helped Phil Myers because they weren't playing as big of minutes like for young guys, whereas this year they were expected to step up and fill those missing minutes. So just his impact on everybody else was huge. And if they just replace him, with somebody like Seth Jones, maybe. Seth Jones is probably a better fit for the Flyers than Dougie Hamilton, although I would take either. I know that Dougie's a right-handed shot, Seth's a left-handed shot, and we talk about, how Alain Vigneault loves his lefty-righties. But Seth Jones is positionally sound, and he's a little bit more of a defensive two-way forward where you allow Ivan Provorov to go crash down the boards to get your loose pucks, to pinch in the offensive zone, knowing that your guy is going to be back there behind you, whereas Shane Gostisbehere is going to do the same thing, and he's all lost and not positionally sound. So I think Seth Jones is probably the right fit for this team. I would absolutely, give up some pieces to go get a Seth Jones, even though he only has 1 year left on his deal. So that, to me, that's the right move, is to go ahead and get Seth Jones and pair him with Provorov, because he will eat huge minutes. And I think he's the reason Zach Werenski's had such great offensive years in Columbus, is because of his running partner.
Well, what did you need me here for today, brother? And the first time in a
pleasure of this show is we're also knowledgeable.
And the first time in podcast history, you are going to hear me utter these words. I agree with you.
We got him to say it too.
With that being said, and we pick each other's brain. We'll add on a few more things with that. Man, you hit me with some really good stuff there. I'm a little taken back, actually. So I'm gonna dive into the Seth Jones thing. Exactly what you had said. We talked about this the other day. Seth Jones, everybody looks at the numbers. Now, well, first of all, with defense, that's like the last thing you should really worry about, because they're there for defensive purposes. Offense is always a plus, and you're getting that with Seth Jones. With that being said, exactly what Ryan had said, look at what he does in the game. Slows the game down. Niskanen slowed the game down so Provorov can make the move that he makes. They complemented each other so well. Seth Jones is a better player. Hot take, Seth Jones is a better player than Matt Niskanen.
Oh, yeah.
He will be such a good addition for Provorov, because Provy struggled. The team struggled. His right-hand man, no pun intended, was gone. He retired, as he should. Happily retired with the Matt Niskanen. But we need someone to fill that spot. I like Seth Jones. I want him here. I think that's what needs to happen. And that's my take on Seth Jones. I'm going to keep rolling here. I'm also going to pick up with Bill. Bill had mentioned some of the things about where this team stands right now. I'm watching it, and I'm going to even plug this one on a negative term. I'm listening to a podcast last night, and one of the gentlemen on the pod, this team needs to make drastic change. Trade. I'm going to trade him for you to Evan those takes. Right. We got it. You heard how furious I was the other day on the phone. This team does not need to trade every one of their players away. Make smart moves. Bring in what's needed. My opinion, a package deal. We are so deep in forward on this team, and half the players don't even know it yet. The team, but the fans don't even know it. Move a Travis Konecny. I'm okay with that. I really am. I would move Travis Konecny. I know how people feel about giving up on young players, so to speak. My young player don't give up on. Do not move Joel Farabee. Keep Joel Farabee. Exactly. Move Travis Konecny. Package him with something. Make a move. Get Seth Jones in here. This team is only. Look at Wade Allison. People were comparing Wade Allison. Oh, Wade Allison's taking Nicholas Aubin-Cabell's minutes. No. He's taking like JVR's minutes. This kid just shine. I see him as an 18 to 22, 23 goals next year. I got this kid pretty up. It's only going to get better. Of course, there's question marks with some of the forwards. We still don't know about Morgan Frost. Nolan Patrick, another one. And we all know about that discussion. Keep him. Let's see what happens. I played ice hockey 18 years. I've had 3 concussions. I was out 2 years in a row because of it. Let the kid get back and see what he can do. We're just going to dish him away. If we would have did that everybody wanted Sean Couturier dished away because he didn't get play at his potential for 5-6 years. Let's see what this kid has. I don't see the team much different next year. A few big pieces coming in 2 years. Look out. Young, handsome, and feeling good this team's going to be. So going back off Bill's point, I think that a couple key pieces and we're going to be just fine. I
want to piggyback off of the Travis Konechny situation. I'm also ready to get rid of him. Look, he's a wonderful goal scorer. He can finesse with the puck. It's amazing. It's wonderful to watch. He makes so many mistakes. And so
I haven't seen any goal scoring. I've seen bright spots, Bill. I haven't even seen that. I haven't seen him produce since before the playoffs 2 years ago. So, I don't know about this goal scoring. I'm concerned. He was my biggest question mark this season was Travis Konechny.
So I don't have the stats in front of me. I'm trying to pull them up.
Oh, I hear you, brother. Yeah, absolutely.
But my point being is, regardless of whether he is or isn't scoring a ton of goals this past season, he had. No, you're right. He only had 34 points this last season. So
you're right. What's his role? What is Travis Konechny's role?
He's a fast forward. My point, and I'm piggybacking and agreeing with you. I'm totally okay with him going away because of the amount of mistakes that he makes. His plus minus is -5, which is really not that terrible when you think of the whole scope of things. But if you're supposed to be as good as Travis Konechny is supposed to be, it's not supposed to be negative at all. End of story.
6 years, $33 million.
There you go. 6 years, $33 million. Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's funny you brought up Wade Allison, Frankie, because my thinking is, and here's another guy I'm not very high on, but you could absolutely get a huge return for him. For Seth Jones, I would, in the blink of an eye, deal Travis Konechny, Morgan Frost, and a first-round pick. They'd be gone like that. I'm not high on Frost unless they move him to the wing, and they haven't done it yet. I don't know why. He's not going to be a top six. He's not going to be a top six center. Like, he'll be a top. Like, he's playing third line minutes if he stays at the center at the most, because Kevin Hayes is signed to that huge contract. You're not moving him down to the third line, and most certainly not moving Sean Couturier down to the third line. So where's he going to play? So go ahead and deal Travis Konechny, because you're just going to sit there and put Wade Allison on the line with G and Coots anyway, and watch him shine with one of the best two-way forwards in hockey and a guy who's going to dish him the puck. You finally give them, maybe a pure sniper. And then on the second line, you put Farabee with Hayes, and you can insert a couple different guys there on the other wing. Maybe Jake Voracek if he's still around. But, now you're pairing snipers with passers, playmakers. You got G with Wade Allison. You got Farabee with Jake Voracek. You got guys in the right spot finally playing the positions they're supposed to be playing, not two guys on the top line passing each other the puck back and forth. So go ahead and deal Konechny. You have, forward depth. We want to see Wisdom up here sometime soon, because everybody raves about him like a Wayne Simmons type player. You could see him on the third or fourth line here in the coming season just to see what he's all about. There's so much forward depth. Go ahead and deal Konechny for, he just doesn't fit in Alain Vigneault's system. He always is in bad defensive position, and Vigneault expects his guys to be able to play 200-foot hockey. And that's why Konechny was benched twice. He just doesn't do it.
Question real quick, not too much of your take, but I know you mentioned plugging playmakers with snipers, Then you listed some names. Who's your playmaker? Who's your sniper?
Oh, well, Jake would you pair Jake with Joel Farabee, and then you put
who's your sniper? Who's your playmaker?
Oh, it's Farabee.
Farabee's the what? The playmaker?
No, he's a sniper. He's the shooter.
I was looking for something to argue with.
Farabee's the shooter, no doubt. Jake's always been pass first guy, and that's always been my biggest issue. I don't hate Jake as a player. He's not in a great spot here because he's forced to play on the first line with G, who's also a passer, and Couturier, who's a two-way forward. There's something missing from that line, and it's goal scoring. It's always been I touched on it the first time you were here. Claude Giroux's never been with a goal scorer,
and it's my favorite take. I should get it 10. I have to just make one comment. I have a good friend of mine here that's a huge Flyers fan, huge fan of you guys, and she is just looking to she's like wants to just speak her mind over here, but she'll have her time another time. That being said, she wants to come at Ryan. She wants to debate with the Ryan man. With that being said,
no, hang on a second. What does she want to debate Ryan with?
Yeah, let's hear this.
She's agreeing for most of it. Is there a take that you actually do like? No, not right now. All right, she's not ready for that yet. But with that being said, I
come at us with that.
All right, so let me ask you this, Frank. That trade that I just said, Frost, Konechny, and a first for Seth Jones. 1 year of Seth Jones. You doing that?
Ooh, now that was the key thing, was the 1 year.
Who says you can't re-sign him?
Well, you can.
But that's the
Well,
point.
hold on. Well, that's what you have to get. What you have to think about. That's what not many people are thinking about. If you're getting him for the 1 year, now I'm getting to get excited and stand up. If you're getting him for the 1 year, if you get him for the 1 year, you have to think about what you don't want to give up. You don't want to give up a player like Farabee, and it's been talked about. I'm seeing it. It's been talked about Farabee involved. I don't even know what they would do. I mean, the depth is good, but you don't want to give up rid of a player like that. Morgan Frost, I'm with you. I'm not there yet. Still a question mark for me. I haven't seen enough, and he's been up here pretty frequently, and he hasn't shown too much. With that being said, I would do that deal. I want to keep Seth Jones. We are not in the position really to have a rental to win now. 3 years, we're there. So I want to keep him. So you have to think about what you're going to give up to get him to keep him. With that being said, love that take. And you also mentioned a little bit about the pieces that are on this team. They're not people are not in the right line or spot. That is a great take, by the way, because I really agree with that. I agree with that 100%. Move Jake Voracek here, plug a young kid here. Then it starts to form, and then you have the right pieces in the right spot. Hot take by Ryan. Nice job.
All right, since we're going over the Flyers roster so heavily right now, I want Ryan to go first on this one. Obviously, the expansion draft is coming up. Well, you know what? Before we get into that, let's discuss how the Kraken decided to hire Dave Haxtell. Let's touch on that real fast.
That was a huge whiff. Huge whiff.
So, Ryan, you and I talked about this right before we got on. They interviewed Rick Tocchet. They interviewed the guy from Vegas. I can't think of his name off the top.
John Gallant.
Thank you, John Gallant. And they went with Dave Haxtell. What is the leadership down there? Oh, I'm sorry. Over there doing?
Yeah, no, those were the two names off the top of my head that I thought for sure Tocchet was a shoo-in for that job. They interviewed him like 3 or 4 times. And I was like,
a bunch of times.
Then when I heard Dave Haxtell was hired, I was like, you skipped out on Rick Tocchet, who you interviewed 4 times, and John Gallant, who is like expansion team god coach. Like he took Vegas to the Cup final their first year. So this guy knows exactly how to manage an expansion team. And you went with Haxtell, who led the Flyers to nowhere, assisted Toronto going nowhere. Like, what?
Frankie?
Mind if I, gents? Mind if I? All right, here we go. So, 2 takes, right? The old Philadelphia 2 take. I don't even know why Seattle even he did nothing. I actually blame him for Scott Kingery not playing well. Okay, that's how bad Dave Haxtell was. I knew you guys would love that take. I actually blame him for how bad Scott Kingery is. With that being said, I don't even know what they saw. I didn't even see anything out of him. It was actually, I almost felt bad because you would see him kind of argue with the refs, and the refs be like, dude, who are you? I mean, you're not getting a take on me here. And he had that stern, dumb face, whatever. He's a hate the face kind of guy. But then you do the old swap-a-roo, and you think about, well, we are from Philadelphia. We'll probably go there and win a cup.
yeah. Sad part is it's probably true. I don't know.
The coaches leave here. I mean, you see Berube got fired. Berube, Laviolette, Ken Hitchcock still had success. Gabe, everybody leaves Philadelphia, and it's like they end up winning. Craig Berube won a Stanley Cup with a team that wasn't really even there yet with St. Louis Blues. But then again, little Gloria can do anything to anybody.
Speaking of former Flyers, I think it's Patrick Maroon's fault that the Blues won the Cup, and he should come back to Philadelphia. That was all sarcasm.
Do you want to get into that? Hold on a second. How do you feel about the Patrick Maroon thing? Because we can dive in. Do you think we should never get rid of him?
Hey, I will give you both 30 seconds on this.
Here we go. Where do you stand on Patrick Maroon? Should they have kept him?
No.
Oh, I can never argue with you. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, no point being here at that time.
All right.
Patrick Maroon is a player that is like a Nick Foles. He was on a team that's stacked already. He had 7 points in the playoffs last year. I love the accomplishment. 3 Stanley Cups in a row is pretty phenomenal. He was a decent player on a stacked team. He had 7 points in the playoffs. Like, come on, and 3 of them are probably empty net goals.
Yeah, how many votes did he get for Conn Smythe? I forget. Oh, probably 0.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I thought it was Pat Falloon at one time. I don't even know who the hell he was, but that being said.
For those of you listening right now, it's obvious that Ryan and Frankie know way more about hockey than I do, and that's totally okay because I surpassed Frankie in baseball, and Ryan and I really.
Baseball, NASCAR, being a good guy.
When you have Braden Point, who's out here trying to break Rick McLeish's playoff record for consecutive games with a goal, and then some guy named Nikita Kucherov who had like 1,000 points in 10 games, and then Andrei Vasilevsky, who was the Conn Smythe winner and a Vezina finalist and a Vezina winner, and the dude's a straight stud, best goalie in the NHL. Who is Pat Maroon?
Huh. That's exactly what it is. I don't understand. People are so mad. You should have kept him. You want to talk about players you should have kept? Please, let's go.
Real quick, let's touch back on the Dave Haxtell situation. It's also worth noting that the expansion teams in the NHL find a way to end up stacked. And it's because of the way that the NHL does it for expansion teams. Teams can only protect 5 players or what is it, 7 players and a goalie.
It's 4 forwards. It's 8 skaters total, or 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and then there's 1 goalie with each.
For any hockey team to be successful, you have to have 10 to 11 good players, and you're talking you can only protect 8 of them. So the expansion team gets to go through every single roster and say, who's their 9th best player? I'm taking them. Who's their 9th best player? I'm taking them. So they get an entire team full of good players. It's no wonder why Vegas has been successful since they've been into the league. And I expect the Kraken to be almost identical to that success.
Well, and there's also roles. I mean, you think about the role players. I mean, and I always look at this one. I mean, when Vegas took Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, he was a gritty, good player. Not a big goal scorer. He mastered his role. It would be like taking a LaPerriere when he was playing the way he played. He was a great penalty killer, can move the puck. His role, what he could do, he was phenomenal. I think he was assistant captain for Flyers for 6 minutes, and then he was like gone the next night. I liked him a lot. I really did like him. You never know what you can get in this expansion draft. It's going to be really, really interesting. We got the off season out here.
Think about this. Like, without Vegas, would anybody know who William Karlsson, Jonathan Marchessault, or Riley Smith are? Probably not.
No.
That line was made because they were the top line of Vegas the first year, and they went to the Cup, and everybody was like, holy crap, Jonathan Marchessault can score. William Karlsson's a good two-way center, and Riley Smith plays good hockey.
Changing the camera on this there, Frankie.
You're good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had the old charge.
No, it's fine. Let us move into the expansion situation. Obviously, I just mentioned the Kraken get to take what could end up being the 9th best player on the Flyers roster. So let's discuss really quick who we think the Flyers lose. There's a couple of names on my list. The one that I hope they take and that the Flyers don't protect, and this is just a personal opinion because I don't really care for him as a Flyer, Shane Gostisbehere.
Also on my list.
He's the one I honestly, after looking at the way the expansion draft is going to go, I think it falls where they're looking for a defenseman, and I think Shane Gostisbehere goes.
He's 3rd place on my list. Actually, 2nd place on my list. I do have a name that I believe the Kraken take ahead of him, but I want to hear everybody else's takes first.
Yeah, Frank.
All right, here we go. So I actually have Shane Gostisbehere probably like number 1 to go. With that being said, he's shown massive potential. I mean, he obviously has some issues, but
he's shown massive potential.
Hold on a second here. Hold on. Let me finish with the B. I think he still has massive potential. Maybe not on this team. On a new team, he might be a little bit better. But he showed offensive. He came and he started putting the puck in the net again. He started scoring. I think it's going to come down to if he plays well and the Flyers are still choosing to protect Sanheim, then he'll probably go to Seattle. I see him going to Seattle.
Okay,
I like the Ghost.
To piggyback off of that real fast, Flyers protect 3 defensemen. Who are you protecting?
Oh, that's a good one. All right, here we go. I will probably
Provy.
Yeah.
I think the Flyers also protect Braun and Sanheim.
Braun and Sanheim?
So would you keep Sanheim? You would keep him?
I would protect Sanheim and I would protect Braun.
Myers, Sanheim, and Provorov for me.
Myers was a close 4 for me, but
Braun, I agree with Frank. It's those 3, and let me tell you why. Because it touches back on the Matt Niskanen point. When Matt Niskanen retired in the offseason, what the Flyers organization and Chuck Fletcher and Alain Vigneault expected from Phil Myers and Travis Sanheim was to step up and play those big minutes. Obviously, they couldn't do it. That doesn't mean they're bad defensemen. The year before that with Niskanen, they played great as a second pairing. They were on key with each other. They were playing solid, 18 to 20 minutes a night. They were a good second pairing and they can grow together and come up together. And then when you lose Niskanen, you plug Sanheim into top minutes. It doesn't work out. Then you take his running partner, Myers, put him in there. It doesn't work out. They can't really gel together. They're playing out of position. If you just leave them together on the second pair, I promise you they'll be fine. And that's why I asked Frank on the phone the other day, do you think there's a chance Cam York comes up and he's Provorov's running mate right away? And I would say that the odds are better of that than the other two.
All right. So the reason I went with Braun is because of what we just, you're going to get your chance, man. We're very open. So the reason I went with Braun was because, as we already discussed with the Niskanen situation and the veteran presence that he brings to the locker room, I said Braun because, look, I'm the same age as this guy. I'm a little bit older, actually. And I feel very young. I feel like if I were still in tip-top shape like these guys.
Looking good, baby. Looking good.
I could still be playing professional sports. And I mean that. I mean, I'm not as good as them. I'm not trying to say that. I'm saying if I was in better shape and I was good, I could still be playing. Which is, again, the veteran presence in the locker room. Braun really does bring that for the defensemen. You're talking, all of them have been born 93 or later at that point. And we're already saying Ghost is going to go. So you're talking 95 and later. And that's if Hag stays on the roster. So I was looking for a veteran presence. That's why I chose Braun over Myers. Now, I'm not saying Myers is a bad defenseman. I'm saying that I would rather have, for the veteran presence specifically, Braun.
I love that. And what you said, it was close for me. It was very close for me. The veteran presence is big, but this is what led me to keeping Phil Myers. Phil Myers is the team's best right-handed shot right now. With York still in the developing stage, and they obviously gave him the 3-year contract, it shows the commitment for Myers to stay. With that being said, that's why I kind of led to, because we need a right-handed shot. I mean, I'm hoping that Seth Jones comes in and does that, but he's the team's best right-handed shot, and that's kind of why I went that route.
So that take is good.
I picked Myers because of age. As a starting team, you're going to want to build kind of a young nucleus. You're going to want some young players like Vegas did. Carlson, Marchessault, and Riley Smith were all very young players. They built around those guys. And that's what Myers is. He's very young. He has a lot of room to grow, and we've seen the potential with Myers, whereas Braun's kind of hit his ceiling at this point. And this ties into my prediction for who they're going to take, and it's Jake Voracek. Now, I would rather see JVR go, but if you think about it, Seattle has to take one of the 3 big contracts in terms of JVR, Jake, or Ghost off our hands. They have a minimum cap requirement they have to meet, and it's not every day you see guys making $5+ million available for selection in an expansion draft. It just doesn't happen very often. You can go down the list of rosters. They have a minimum cap requirement they have to meet. So if Jake is left unprotected, which in my predictions he is, Seattle would be smart to take him. However, I would love it if they took JVR. I think that would be perfect for us because JVR's kind of capped at his ceiling too. I believe Shane Gostisbehere's trade value is better than JVR's.
So they were my top 3 likely to go candidates: Ghost, JVR, and JV. For everything that you said, go ahead, Frankie. You had something.
I do. So this is my take. I mean, like I said, Ghost, JVR. I still can't figure out my third one, so I want to focus on the JVR thing. I think JVR goes. And with that being said, Jake Voracek, I don't see him staying. I mean, he still has a couple more years left. I think he may be a middle of the year trade piece probably next year, or maybe even the year after that. I think he's going midway through at the trade deadline next year or the year after. That being said, JVR, he's got veteran leadership. Like I said, I've never been a big fan because I'm still disgustingly sick that we got him instead of Patrick Kane. That being said, I think JVR goes, and I also think that hot take, big on the record, I think he is also the captain of the Kraken next year.
That wouldn't actually surprise me. That it also depends on who they take, but that wouldn't surprise me one bit because he's been around the block a time or two. He's played in the cup final. He's played in the cup final.
Yep.
Yes. All right, Frankie. Bro, thanks for coming on. You got
Hold on, wait.
Oh,
we got our fan questions about the hockey.
Yeah.
Hockey.
Yes, I love the
wasn't on the docket. My bad.
All right, so from John Ferris, he did ask this on our live segment a couple weeks ago, but we were talking fantasy football, so we deferred it to a later date. What active NHL player leads the NHL in playoff goals? I did not look up the answer, so I don't know.
Come on, baby. I don't look up answers. What active? What active player on of NHL or Flyers?
NHL.
Give me the question one more time.
What active NHL player leads the NHL in playoff goals? Like everybody that's playing right now, who has the most playoff goals? I feel like Ovechkin is it, but I also feel like
I think it's Ovechkin.
But the Caps have been bounced from the playoffs too many times too early. So
yeah, I would either probably, and you got to think about who was in the playoffs a lot. I would probably have to either go. Man, this is a really good question.
I really don't want to say Sidney Crosby because I really
I
want to
wouldn't.
not.
He's too much of a playmaker. I would have went Malkin. I would either have went Malkin or I would have actually went Kucherov.
I've got that.
But actually, Malkin's had a habit of showing up small in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true too. That's a great question.
Actually,
what was the gentleman's name? What was the gentleman's name?
John Ferris.
Is he a big Flyers fan?
Yeah.
Tell him to get in touch with me. I'm going to do a fanism piece with him for Bleacher Report.
Okay.
Yeah,
he'll listen to this episode.
I have the answer.
Is it Patrick Kane? That's my guess.
It is not. It is not. So Alexander Ovechkin is number 2 with 71. Sidney Crosby is number 3 with 69. Patrick Marleau is number 1 with 72.
Wow. Oh, he's still playing, that old bastard. Oh, my God. The Stars go to the finals every year, too.
To be fair, San Jose played in the weakest division. They would just get bounced from the conference final every year. They'd go win the President's Trophy by like 10 points, and then they would never do anything in the playoffs. They're an embarrassment. But that actually surprises me.
I'm surprised. I'm actually really surprised. Hey, did anybody think about this? Real quick take before we say goodbye. Is it true that this is the first time since the divisions that the Stanley Cup Final hosted 2 Eastern Conference teams with Montreal and Tampa Bay?
Technically, this isn't the first time. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time? Yeah. A little nugget for you guys.
You got anything else for us, Frankie, before you sign off?
I only have one more thing, and that is you guys are awesome. I love coming on here with you guys. Keep up the great work. And you guys are awesome. I'm so glad that we became family, friends. Keep up the great work. Can't wait to come back on.
Thanks, Frankie.
Thanks for coming on, man. So much. Appreciate it.
Brian, hot takes, brother. You're at it, man. You're kicking butt. Bill, also another phenomenal job. It's hard to debate because we all just had the minds going. Love you guys. Say it.
Say it easy, Frank.
Say it.
All right, so moving on, Ryan and I are going to talk a little bit about the MLB All-Star Game. Ryan, I'm going to let you start it off because I feel like I hosted that whole hockey thing, so you're up, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll host the baseball thing, let you give your takes, and then we'll go ahead and rebound with mine. So coming up first, the Home Run Derby. So we have our 8 candidates for the Home Run Derby. All-Star break, fun time. Home Run Derby is probably the best event about the All-Star break. It could arguably be the best mini event in any major sports All-Star breaks. So our 8 candidates are out. And looking at the bracket, Bill, if you have it in front of you.
It's pulling up literally as we speak.
Yep. So who do you think's going to win? You got 2 of your boys in there.
Yeah, so what Ryan means by 2 of my boys is a guy who I've talked about damn near every episode we've had, Shohei Ohtani. He's the number 1 seed, actually, sitting at the we're not even at the break yet, but he's sitting here with 32 home runs right now as we speak.
Who, by the way, he just broke the record for a Japanese-born player in a full season with home run totals, breaking Hideki Matsui's record. We're at the All-Star break, like we said. So in half a season, he broke what Hideki Matsui did in a full season.
Hey, look, it's worth noting that he's not just hitting like balls to the wall and they're getting out. He's hitting bombs. Half of his home runs have an average distance of 420 feet or more. Like he's not just hitting bombs; he's hitting bombs. But anyway, so moving past Shohei Ohtani, he faces off with Juan Soto in the first round. I think Ohtani takes the lead on that one. Then you got Joey Gallo sitting with 23 home runs. He's got 10 in the last 11 games. That's super impressive for any player in any stretch of time. Trevor Story with 11 home runs. Matt Olson with 21 home runs. Trey Mancini is my other boy that Ryan was referring to. He's already been, I've said it several times, Ryan has agreed with me that he's very, very, very likely, almost a lock to be comeback player of the year. He's got 15 home runs on the season. He's one of very few bright spots in that Orioles lineup right now. It's hard to argue with what he's doing there. He hit a 451 shot the other day. Who was it against? I'm sorry. Who cares? 451 shot the other day. Salvador Perez with 20 home runs. Pete Alonso with 15 home runs. He's been a disappointment to me this season.
Actually, that might be the most surprising like first round matchup in the MLB, because if I told you it's Salvador Perez versus Pete Alonso and one of them has 20 home runs and the other is 15, you would not peg Salvador Perez to be the one that has 20 home runs.
Correct. So I actually don't think Ohtani wins the Derby, but he definitely gets out of the first round. I'm not going to go round for round with you. However, I think likely just strictly power and what they bring to the game, Joey Gallo probably wins. That's my thought process. Also, he's the one. I mean, I know Ohtani's hot, but he's the one who's like super, super hot going into this break. So Gallo, I think, is the one who wins the home run derby.
So Joey Gallo, in my opinion, was born for the home run derby, because if this guy could learn how to hit 250, he would be an all-star every year, but he can't, because I don't know why.
I saw your face when I said it, which means you probably agree with me that it's going to be Gallo.
No, actually, I disagree. But the winner will, in my opinion, will come from that side of the bracket. I'll get there in a second. A good buddy of mine, he's a big Cardinals fan, and I were talking about Joey Gallo before the season, and him and I both agree that Joey Gallo probably has the most raw power in the MLB, and he's probably the most underrated athlete too. The guy can play the outfield. Granted, has some errors from time to time, but the dude has a cannon of an arm, and you always see this dude throwing 96, 97 mile an hour bullets to third base or home plate from right field. He plays center, he plays left. He's played third base in his career, albeit not very well, but he's played third base. So he's a big guy. He's an athlete. He runs well, has a cannon, just cannot hit for average. However, massive, massive power. This guy, I mean, he's batting 230 and he's slugging, over 500. So obviously every ball he hits goes pretty far. That being said, I also agree that Ohtani gets out of the first round. However, my winner is Matt Chapman. And the second place, not second place guy, but if I had to, or not Matt Chapman, excuse me, Matt Olson, Oakland A's guy, another guy with raw power. But if I had to pick not a runner-up, because he's also on the same side of the bracket, it'd be Trevor Story.
Hold on. You said Matt Chapman wins. Matt Chapman's not in it.
Yeah, I said Matt Olson.
Oh,
I corrected myself.
I thought that's what you meant. I wanted to make sure that everybody.
Yeah, Matt Olson, the other Matt on the A's. I just think Matt Olson, raw power, and it's these types of things never really go as planned. So I'm going with the number 3 seed to steal it, kind of a guy that's flying under the radar. And if I had to pick a dark horse, it's Trevor Story, because this is his home ballpark. This is the ballpark he plays half his games in. So maybe he has a competitive advantage there. Who knows? But go ahead, Matt Olson for the W here. We'll see. I'm excited to watch, though. You'll definitely see me tune in.
Sounds good. You actually mentioned Matt Chapman, somebody who maybe could have made the All-Star game. Let's talk about snubs real quick.
Easy snubs. But go ahead, Bill. Go ahead and give me your snub first. Speaking of the Athletics.
So, speaking of the Athletics, yeah, Chris Bassett. He's a starting pitcher out there in Oakland. The guy's 9-2 with a 3.14 ERA, 115 strikeouts. Other than his last outing in Houston, he's put them in a position to win every single game. His 2 losses, he lost 3-1 against the Astros in one, and he lost 2-1 in an outing against the Angels earlier in the year. Outside of that, he's put his team in a position to win every single game. And in my opinion, if that doesn't make you an all-star, I don't know what does.
Yeah, no, that's the definition of an all-star. And no disrespect to Matt Olson, but if you're going to have one representative from each team, it should at least be the best player on that team. And I know pitchers aren't voted upon, they're picked by the managers, but there were definitely a couple snubs in terms of pitching, which leads into my snub, easily Max Scherzer. I think he might be the biggest snub of the entire All-Star game. Going into his last outing against San Diego, which we will touch on what happened in that outing in a second, he was 7-4 with a 2.10 ERA. How does that not get you into the All-Star game? And no, same deal in Washington. No disrespect to Juan Soto, but Max Scherzer is by far having a better year than Juan Soto is. So I believe if you're going to pick one representative from each team, it should have been Scherzer, not Juan Soto. But you can make the case that they both should have been in the All-Star game.
Absolutely, you could have. Absolutely.
However, why don't you go ahead and tell us about said Max Scherzer and how he was on the wrong side of history?
So Mad Max and the Washington Nationals jump out to an 8-0 lead over the San Diego Padres yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. So we're filming on Friday nights. I believe it happened on Thursday evening. So, I mean, it's the bottom of the fourth inning. All of a sudden, Scherzer gives up two runs, and then the bases are loaded, and a relief pitcher for the San Diego Padres comes to the plate and hits a grand slam. I don't know the last time a relief pitcher hit a grand slam.
1985.
Ryan is on top of stats for me. But man, that's for a relief pitcher to come in and hit a grand slam off of Max Scherzer. That's really saying something. Not to mention the kid who hit the home run. His parents, he was a rookie. It's his first outing. It's his first ever at bat. His parents are being interviewed while he's batting, and he hits a grand slam. That's a good feel good story.
Let's break this down a little bit further. So you have a relief pitcher taking his first major league at bat, like you touched on, which is a big deal anyway. It's against a future Hall of Famer in a stadium that is rocking because your team is kind of making a comeback. This wasn't a wall scraper. This was like 15 rows up in right field. This was a bomb. This was classified as a no-doubter, go ahead, do a bat flip, young man, whatever you want to do type of home run. In one of the most notorious pitchers parks in history in San Diego, the sea breeze kills almost every fly ball out there. And it is a notorious pitcher's park. And I guess it was pitcher friendly this time because the pitcher hit it. So yeah, to break this down all the way was kind of an incredible event and something you just don't see anymore with how deep the benches have got. They've expanded the rosters this year from 25 to 26 players. So that's usually means one extra bench player for each team. That's unheard of. That was cool. That was cool to see. And it ended up fueling a comeback. Padres came all the way back and won that game.
Yeah. Like you said, against a Hall of Famer, and he's a relief pitcher. And for what it's worth, for those of you who don't know a lot about baseball, relief pitchers almost never bat. Almost never.
They might get an at-bat a season, maybe two.
Yeah. So, I mean, so this may be his only at-bat of the season, and it's a grand slam. So pencil him in for 1,000.
Yeah, pencil him in for a career 1,000 hitter. It's funny because the Nationals jumped out to an 8-0 lead against an ace in his own right, Yu Darvish. They beat him up. They beat the crap out of him. That's probably why the relief pitcher was batting in the first place.
Correct. Yeah.
So
you got anything else you want to add on, buddy?
What's up?
You got anything else you want to talk about today?
Yeah, the MLB draft's coming up.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go ahead and watch it. Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, two names have been thrown around. Jordan Lawler. There's so many good prospects this year. Still want the Phillies to go. Ty Madden, right-handed pitcher from Texas, up in the high. He reminds me a lot of Zach Wheeler in the sense that the things that they ding him on are kind of what you would ding Zach Wheeler on. So he lacks a swing and miss third pitch, which Zach Wheeler's changeup isn't, albeit it's a good one. Obviously, he's in the majors, but he doesn't throw it very often. They both have very good sliders. Ty Madden throws a little bit of a get-me-over curveball as well, just like Wheeler does. And they both throw in the high 90s, but don't have swing and miss stuff. Wheeler's a ground ball pitcher. He's not a strikeout guy. Ty Madden's a ground ball pitcher, not much of it, doesn't project to be much of a strikeout guy in the MLB. So they're calling him a bit of a project, which I am interested by that term.
He's a big kid.
It's also the same bunch of scouts that just projected Kumar Rocker's ceiling.
You're breaking up on me, buddy. Stop talking.
As a number 3 starter in the MLB versus a top tier ace. Am I?
Yeah.
What?
Hold on. Pause. I'm not pausing the video, but you froze on me. I'm going to pause the video.
Did I?
Oh, no, wait. Talk. All right. That's wonderful. We got you back.
Yeah, no, technical difficulties.
Sorry,
So-
when you guys some of you don't understand, but we're very low budget here at BSing Sports, so it's going to happen. I was mentioning Ty Madden is a big kid. He's 6'3", 215 pounds.
Yeah, no, he in my opinion, from what I've seen in his freshman and this most recent season, he's very comparable to Zach Wheeler, both in size and the way that they pitch. Not swing and miss fastballs. So that's something to keep your eye on. You don't rarely ever see high 90 guys, without swing and miss stuff.
All right.
And Zach Wheeler seems to be doing okay.
Yeah. What's that got this year? 210 ERA? Oh, no,
I don't know after his last start. I know 3 of those runs weren't earned, so it won't mess with his ERA too much. But
that's all I got
and
this week.
We talked a lot about the Phillies last week, so I kind of want to avoid talking about them this week, but they're playing good baseball, and they just took 3 out of 4 in Chicago, which is big for this team. So this season is going to go one of two ways at this point. They're in Boston tonight for a 3-game set. This is either going to be the peak of their season, or it's going to be the base of their season where they start a run. And I say that because in the time that Bryce Harper has been here since 2019, this is a 400 team on the road. They're awful on the road, notoriously bad. Against a team in the Cubs that was beaten down. They had lost, I think, 9 in a row, 8 in a row, something like that going into that series. That was a series that had to be got, and they went and got it on the road, which is tough for this Phillies team to do. So this is either the start of something, or this is going to be the moment where we say they should have taken off with it and they didn't.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. They're playing really good ball right now.
And once again, the lineup's not the issue here. The Phillies lineup, when healthy, they hit the baseball.
I think they're averaging like 4.2 runs a game, which is really impressive. Even their starting pitching has come around to a very good extent. Nola is still kind of shaky, but only giving up 3 runs an outing is good. Velasquez has been consistent. Eflin's been very consistent. Wheeler has been Wheeler.
Eflin's got to be one of the most efficient pitchers in baseball. I mean, he's not pitching deep in the ball game, but a lot of the time you'll look at teams at 82, 86 pitches and they're already yanking him for a pinch hitter because the game's close and they need some offensive help or whatever. So I feel like Eflin's record doesn't really reflect how he's pitching. He'll be losing 2-1 a lot of the time, 3-2, something like that. And then he gets yanked from the game pretty early. But we need a little bit more consistency out of Nola. Velasquez has been up and down ever since his good stretch. So I think once the starting pitching levels out a little bit and the bullpen kind of settles into their new roles, I think this team will play itself out. We talked about them acquiring a closer. With the Cubs slide, they're now 4th place in their division, I believe, and they own probably the best trade piece on the block right now, Craig Kimbrell. How would you like to see the former Atlanta Brave, the guy who Phillies fans mocked behind home plate doing his weird, setup at? That would be awesome. I would absolutely tell Alvarado to go kick rocks himself into the 8th inning for Craig Kimbrell to be on this team.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I'm with you there. The question is, what would the Cubs be asking in return for him?
33-year-old closer with a sub-1 ERA. Who do you give up for him?
Cornelius Randolph.
Absolutely. That was the first name that came to mind, was Cornelius Randolph. I'd give up at least Cornelius Randolph. Mick Abel's untouchable. Bryson Stott's untouchable. I would give up Cornelius Randolph. I would desperately try to throw Scott Kingery in that trade, although they wouldn't take it. There's no way.
I'd throw Vince Velasquez in there as well.
Problem with that is, who do you call up to take his spot? You put Chase Anderson back in the rotation?
No, I wasn't a fan of the Anderson signing to begin with. We had this discussion at the very beginning of our podcast session.
I liked the Anderson signing. If it meant losing Vince Velasquez and getting Craig Kimbrell, I would absolutely throw Chase Anderson back in the rotation.
In that scenario, absolutely 100% I'm in. But
I mean, we're forgetting this is a guy who had a sub-4 ERA in his time in Milwaukee in the NL Central. Yeah. He was the number 5 starter to the Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta type thing. So he struggled with the Phillies, but I mean, look at Matt Moore. Matt Moore's back in the rotation. He seems to be pitching a lot better than he was earlier in the season.
Yeah, Moore came back from the injury and he's been pitching well. He started off with the bullpen, for those of you who don't know, and now he's in the rotation again because Spencer Howard just couldn't cut it.
That's another. You know what? Throw Spencer Howard in that trade. Goodbye.
Yeah. All right. Well, if they could go and get Craig Kimbrell at the trade deadline, I'm 100. Kick the tires. Let's go.
Yeah, no, they can catch the Mets. They have the bats to do it. They just need to solidify the back end of that bullpen.
I think they're only 3.
Alvarado's got it. We just need to be a little bit patient on Alvarado. He walks guys, but he competes. He most certainly does not just give up and roll over.
And as you pointed out in the past, his energy is awesome. I love his energy.
Yeah, that's why I'm a fan of him being the closer. He brings life to this team, and that's what your closer needs to do. You look at Kimbrell; he's been on some bad teams, but he comes in and he brings life. And Jonathan Papelbon did kind of the same thing. He was a little bit too far off of his rocker in some cases, but he brought the same kind of energy, and that's why he was a good closer in his prime. He had it. He was mentally there as a closer.
Yeah, so the Phillies are 4 games back on the Mets right now. The Mets are the only 500 team in the East, but I agree with you. The Phillies, having said that, The Phillies are second. The Braves and Nationals are tied for third, 4.5 games back, and we're only 4 games back. So, I mean, it's a close division race. The Marlins are starting to teeter. However, the Marlins have been a thorn in the side of the Phillies for years for some reason.
You cannot waste this opportunity. You know, Bryce Harper came here because he wanted the Phillies to compete. JT Realmuto stayed here because he wanted the Phillies to compete. We brought in Wheeler because we were going to compete. Nola's got some years left on his deal. We need to make these moves to compete, and Middleton needs to, you know, be willing to shell out the cash this year. The lineup's going to hit. They'll have their nights where they get 3 hit, you know, 1 run. It happens to everybody. They'll hit.
I'm with you. They need to open the checkbook and start signing and do what it takes to start winning games from a management position. I agree with you.
And give up on some of these guys who are prospects. You know, Randolph is not going to pan out. He's not going to be in the majors. I'm still not out on Moniak yet, but if they get a solid return and a deal involving him, I'm not going to complain if he goes.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. That's all I've got this week. We actually talked about more stuff than I had originally planned. So, I mean, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, considering we made up these topics 2 days ago, I would say we did pretty well on this show. Next week, we apologize, by the way. This episode was going to be live. We apologize. Like we said, we've been so busy with our other lives, we don't get paid to do this job. So
I'm gonna pause you real quick. You can continue to finish. Realmuto was just announced to start the All-Star game. So now we have Wheeler starting pitching and Realmuto starting catching.
Is Wheeler officially the All-Star starter?
Yep. I just got the update on my phone. I think it's probably on yours too.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, that was actually another interesting point that Jacob deGrom, you know, Jacob DeGoat, opted out of the All-Star break. You know, he's not even going for the festivities. He's got a teammate competing in the home run derby. You know, he's the All-Star game. He could at least go and watch. He's not even going to Denver.
I mean, for all we know, he's got some family issues he wants to take care of in the 4 days they get off.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying like boo him, but it's just
I'm not booing him either.
Yeah, interesting note that, you know, Jesus himself is taking off from the All-Star break. So,
but anyway, continue on your rant about how we have other jobs and it's tough to get these things put together really quickly.
Yeah, and it's been a really hectic week. My boss was out, so I was playing his role as well as mine. Bill's always busy at work. You know, he's a family man too. So we really appreciate the loyal listeners. We'll get to another live show. We really enjoyed that. We had well north of the amount of views we thought we were going to have. So that was awesome. Thank you guys. And just stay tuned. We'll bring up some topics. Thank you for the question, John. It was interesting. Learned something new. Did not see Patrick Marleau at the top of that list. So
I thought it was
Bill, if you want to go ahead and close it out?
Yeah, so thanks again. Make sure you're following us on everything that you can. You're subscribing.
Close it.
You're subscribing on YouTube. You're checking out our website, which gets the YouTube link added to it constantly. Follow us on Twitter. Comment. We like to be interactive. And quick shout out to my old man Ken Brant. You're so interactive with us on Facebook. Thank you for that. So we appreciate all you guys listening every time you do. And
thank you to Frankie for coming on today's show, talking his knowledge, spitting facts, you know, bringing the heat. It's great to hear him talk. Go follow Flyers Nitty Gritty and Talking 215. He just recently became the co-host along with our buddy Jake Biastato, like you said. So go ahead and check those guys out too. They're really good.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.